To talk to you about is you've kind of developed over the years, and I'm saying this, I mean, we're just meeting for the first time, but me listening to your podcast, it seems like over the years you developed this philosophy and strategy and approach to retirement planning. And I just wanted to share some of that. We won't probably have time to go through all of it. I mean, you could probably spend, a week talking about all the nuances. But I kind of want to go through on a high level your philosophy and strategy. Now, I want to preface this by saying everybody's situation is different, right? And what works for somebody might not work for another person analytically, emotionally, whatever it might be, right? I mean, everybody has their unique financial situation, their unique family, their unique life. But I think traditionally retirement planning was kind of looked at. I think it's evolving. It was kind of viewed as you got a big portfolio. We're going to run these Monte Carlo simulations. We're going to use a safe withdrawal rate or, your guardrails, a dynamic distribution, and that's kind of it, right? And then what you talk about and what I love is diving a little deeper, right? Peeling back the onion, and I believe you call it the see-through portfolio or the time segment investing. And there's a lot of pieces within there. So where do you think the best place is to start?
You're all over there. I do. You are correct, Jason and listeners. I do have a different and unique approach to retirement planning. I'm one where I question everything. It's just in my nature, and kind of a few things happened to me. One, again, I was a police officer, so I spent 8 years running into what I call now on my podcast the other guy.
Hmm.
And it's just, as humans, we have this self-defense mechanism. I think we're the only living beings that truly understand our own mortality and death and the concepts around that. You look at a dog, I love dogs. I don't think they have any conception of that. They're always just so happy. But we go through our lives knowing that it can end at any time, and it's going to end at any time. And one of the ways we can handle that is to always think, well, it's going to be someone else. Yes, I know people are going to get this disease or that disease or have this accident or this calamity happen to them. It's always going to be the other guy. So I use that verbiage as I talk to my clients and as I talk to our podcast listeners. And one of the things that always struck me as odd, even back in the 90s when I was just studying this at Boston University, is we were told even back then, and that was just around the time that the safe withdrawal rate was even coming out and about,
Hmm.
but that these newfangled 401ks, and in the 90s, they were newfangled, they're only about a decade old. And people were starting to be pushed into these 401ks and out of this lifetime stream of steady income. And back then, they would teach us about the three-legged stool of a solid retirement, which at the time was pension, Social Security, and savings. So they were preaching that those three legs of that stool were wonderful and that would form a great retirement. But then in the same breath, the same instructors are telling us the stool is broken, that 401ks now are going to take away one of the legs of that stool, pension income. Okay, so I sat there and I would think of that. But then as the studies continuing to go on and I started learning about annuities, and I know that's a four-letter word for most retirees, and there's a lot of crap-ass annuities out there, I can't stand them.
Hmm.
But I have a simple approach. I call it the KISS approach. Keep it simply SPIA. Keep it simply SPIA, KISS. And my point is, for people who don't quite understand, if the pension truly was the third leg of that stool and the 401ks replaced it, I always thought, well, why don't we take some of the 401k and fix that leg of that stool? So that just kind of ingrained into my mind. So I had this mindset of a cop that I'm always going to meet the other guy, that sooner or later something is going to happen to people. And in my simple approach, again, I thought, okay, three legs was the great thing. 401ks remove the leg. We can replace a leg if need be. And I started and just took that with me throughout my career. But then as I looked at the safe withdrawal rate, and I would work with people with however much you have, the number of zeros is immaterial. Whether you have saved $500,000 or 5 million, the concepts remain the same. We were told you can only spend 4% of it, or it could be 4.3 now. According to Bill Benjamin, it's 4.7. According to Morningstar, it's 3.9. Every single year it changes. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
And that never resonated with me, Jason, because I thought to myself, why am I going to tell someone who is 60? I'm 60 now, but when I got into this, I was only in my late 30s. How can I tell somebody who's 60 and saved $1 million or $2 million, you can't spend more than 40 or 80,000 of it, when I know that at some given time, he may not see 68, 69 to 70. So this whole notion that all spending had to fall within a safe withdrawal rate never made sense to me. So I started thinking, well, wait a minute. That woman I bought strawberries for many years ago that caused me to go to BU and start studying this, she couldn't afford a basic item, food. And I started thinking that there's a series of basic items that every human needs. And every human needs, in my opinion, food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare expenses.
Mhm.
5 very broad categories, from smallest to largest. But all of those elements and all the subcategories, if you will, under food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare, all of that spending, I haven't met a human yet who doesn't need that until the day they drop dead. So if you are going to need to cover those items for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live, why not cover those items with a stream of income, guaranteed income that will last for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live? So it got me to really wanting to learn all I could about Social Security, all I can about pensions. Most pensions in the private sector are gone, but government employees generally still have some pretty darn good pensions, and federal government employees and some larger private corporations still offer pensions. So let's learn all we can about Social Security. Let's learn all we can about pensions. And let's look at this 4-letter word called an annuity that we're told we should hate and vile. But let's look at some of that, the most simple level, a single premium immediate annuity, and figure out how much of those 3 income sources is it going to take to cover all of those expenses. And I coined a phrase, it's not really a phrase, but metaphorically, Jason, tell your listeners, it's like that bottomless cup of coffee. I don't know if you remember, I remember, mostly because I'm older, going to cafes in Massachusetts and diners, a lot of those roadside diners, and you would get a bottomless cup of coffee. You got this thick, heavy ceramic white coffee mug, and the waitress will come by. One hand had Sanka, one hand had a pot of regular coffee, and she would walk around and pour whichever one you want. And it was always Sanka back then. It was the only decaf you could get. And this cup of coffee would magically always stay full. And you would drink that coffee to your heart's content. You never worried about it because you knew it was going to be refilled. I took that concept and said, if we can highlight and show somebody that their food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare expenses are fully satisfied for the rest of their life, and we pull out of their portfolio the money it's going to take to do that, whether they believe in buying a single premium immediate annuity to cover the shortage between pension and Social Security, or if they want to satisfy it with withdrawals, that's up to them. But we pull that out of the portfolio. Then we have a smaller portfolio. And we sit there with them and we now look in it and we say, okay, what do you want to do to help protect you from aging and long-term care? We call it the SEAL reserve, SEAL, savings for emergencies, aging, and long-term care. What are we going to do to satisfy that? Some people, they don't want to do anything. Other people, mostly because they've experienced it in their family, they go to extremes and they'll pull more money from their portfolio for that. What's left after that, Jason? If I covered your food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare, I covered your savings for emergencies, aging, and long-term care. The dollars that are left, I coined, that's your fund number. That is essentially your budget. I'm not going to limit you to 3.9, 4, 4.7, whatever the hell everybody is saying the safe withdrawal rate is. If I can show you out of, let's just say you had a hypothetical $2 million portfolio, if we pull the money out for the food, utilities, transportation, housing, and healthcare, pull the money out for your sealed reserve, the dollars that are left are predominantly your discretionary fund spending. I call it your fund number. And we encourage people to spend it as fast or as slow as you want. Now, there's a lot more to that than what I shared with you, but you wanted the short version, and that's as short as I can make it.
No, that was great.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Katita and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Katita, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.